Welcome to the Good for Others show. I'm your host, John Valencia, and with me today is Gina Lee with the Partnership for a Better San Diego. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Gina is currently the Director of Staffing and Programs at Partnership for a Better San Diego. With over 20 years of leadership and program management, Gina develops and implements key strategies to meet the staffing needs of both Partnership for a Better San Diego and the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council. In her role, Gina oversees all aspects of recruiting, onboarding, and performance management, ensuring compliance with labor laws and fostering a collaborative and inclusive environment across both organizations. Her work also includes designing impactful programs, managing alternative staffing agency operations, and securing funding through grant applications to support the initiatives such as PBSD's flagship hospitality training program. Known for her resilience, emotional intelligence, and solution-focused mindset, Gina is very passionate about building authentic relationships, using humor to connect with others, and inspiring teams to achieve shared goals. So welcome, Gina. We're super happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So to kick off today's show, I'm going to ask you a few lightning round questions just to get to know you a little better. How's that sound?
Great.
Cool. Would you rather have the power of invisibility or super strength?
I love would you rather questions, by the way.
Awesome.
I'm going to go with super strength because I don't trust myself to be responsible with the power of invisibility. And there are so many things that I could accomplish with the power of strength. But it's more of I'm going to deter myself from the thing that could get me in trouble.
That's
and
a
I'm not
great
even
answer.
sure what I mean by that.
I love that. If you could master any skill instantly, would you choose cooking or playing a musical instrument?
For sure, playing a musical instrument.
Do you play anything?
I play the piano.
Oh.
Well, I played the piano, so I think I remember, but I just haven't in quite a long time.
Oh, I did.
But I would love to fluently play the guitar.
Oh.
I think that's a pretty common one.
Just to pick up an instrument would be so much fun to just be like...
It's like a different language.
Yeah. If you could only live in one climate, would you pick tropical or snowy?
Tropical.
Would you rather have an endless supply of your favorite snack or free tickets to any event? Oh, that's a good one.
I guess a ticket to any event.
Yeah, because
I kind of already have my own endless supply of snacks, so yeah, let's do the ticket.
I love that. Would you rather be able to remember every dream you ever had or never dream at all?
Okay, I have weird dreams, so I think I'd rather not remember any dream.
I agree. Mine can be a little crazy.
Where did that come from?
If you could have a pet from any species, real or mythical, would you choose a dragon or a unicorn?
I guess a unicorn seems more approachable. Dragons are cool, but I think I could do more with a unicorn.
Yeah.
From what I know.
And on a more serious note, who or what inspires you?
There's so many things. I would say that my younger sister inspires me. She, from a very young age, was always seemed more concerned about the world around her than herself. And I was a pretty typical selfish kid. I remember one year, I think she was in first grade or kindergarten, and she asked my parents for, instead of presents for herself, she asked my parents to donate to a Native American organization. And I thought, what is wrong with you? When I was a kid. And then I later learned just how rare that was for a child to think in those terms. And I would say that she has been she's been an inspiration for me throughout my life.
Great. What's her name?
Her name is Mia.
Hi, Mia. Shout out to you for being an awesome kid. and a person as a human. Great. So before we jump into our topic, tell us a little bit about
Oh,
your
may I
life.
add to that? Because I don't want to leave out my parents.
Oh,
But my parents were both immigrated to the United States for they each came individually to pursue their education here, and typical immigrant story. They sacrificed so much to even be here, and then they met and decided to live their life in the United States, and they all are also. My mom is a nurse. My dad is a college professor, but they all both do a lot for their community, and they always have volunteered and done, just done a lot of work for different kinds of organizations. And so, I guess my entire family inspires me, and I think my life of service and working in nonprofit is because of the influence of my parents and my sister.
I love that. So before we jump into the topic, tell us just a little bit about you.
So I was born in Los Angeles, grew up mostly in Orange County, and then I went to school in San Diego and fell in love with it. And so I've spent most of my life in San Diego. And most of my career, so I have over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit human services sector. And let's see, what else do I like to do? I like to dance. I like to take very long walks. Love spending time with my husband, my friends, and my two cats.
What are cats' names?
Andy and Norma. They're siblings.
Mm-hmm.
They're the light of my life.
I love that. Yeah. Now, how did you get into the nonprofit space? Like, so you went to school here. What was your career trajectory? What did that look like?
Oh, it was slightly meandering like most of us. So I pursued a degree in psychology with the idea of possibly becoming a therapist. And I decided that after graduation that was not the path I was going to take, but I was interested in some kind of human service or nonprofit work. And my first job in the social services space was working at a group home for teenage girls. And that was really, that job made me grow up rather quickly. And it just was horrifying to me, the types of the different kinds of lives and paths we all can take just depending on who your parents were. And that inspired me to pursue, just keep going down that path or up that path. I then became a case manager at a nonprofit with the mission of breaking the cycle of child abuse and neglect. And then from there, I ended up at Voices for Children. They are a court-appointed special advocate organization. They advocate for foster youth within the court system. And then after that, I ended up at a organization called Public Consulting Group. They contract with governmental agencies to run their programs. So I oversaw a housing program, intensive case management, and child care program for people who are in public assistance. And then April 2023, I ended up where I am currently, which is Partnership for a Better San Diego. And Partnership for a Better San Diego is the nonprofit affiliate organization of the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council.
Amazing. And I love how you started the conversation because you said, just like many others, we kind of meandered. And I think of a lot of people who are listening to this, especially with our training programs, both of our training programs, a lot of people feel like maybe you go to school, you grow up, and I was always jealous of the friends who knew what they wanted in life. Like, I want to be a doctor. I want to do this. Me neither. And I just was always like, well, what am I going to do? Okay, I got to learn some skills. I got to figure that out. But I didn't know which skills I needed to learn. And I think it's first and foremost, we just need to let people understand that it's okay to dabble and and not know where you get to go or where you're going to end up, because then it maybe becomes a little bit more rewarding because you have a little bit of experience from multiple organizations that then culminate in this really great career down the road when you used to be like, oh, I didn't really want to be a therapist,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Oh, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be a nurse or whatever it may be, but that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay, so it sounds like you had an idea,
Mhm.
and then you started going to these different organizations and learning maybe about yourself in that process, right? About what you liked and what you didn't like. What would you say is some of those traits that you learned along the way that kind of set you up for success in the current role that you're at?
I think that one of or a few of the different skills I had to learn along the way. Um, I would say first and foremost, communication.
Mm.
As a child, and well, as a child, as an adolescent, as a young adult, I was painfully shy. I was told by my parents that in kindergarten, a little kid ran up to me one day and asked me if I was mute because they had never heard me speak. So just being able to express my thoughts and feelings, that was difficult for me starting at a young age. And then working with people and working with populations where, our lives were so different, I had to force myself to learn how to talk to people, and not just people, but different people who I thought initially we had nothing in common. And so I would say communication, being able to empathize and relate to other people. I think those were some immediate traits that come to mind. And then I think also working in nonprofit and social services, you just have to become resilient because there's so much vicarious trauma that can come with it when you hear, devastating, tragic stories, and you feel surrounded by that. You just have to learn how to cope and, find that inner strength and different ways to, to manage that by engaging in other hobbies, forming relationships outside of work. And so I would say the final thing is just like getting stuff done. Nonprofits are often so, very under-resourced. So you are often trying to do multiple, sometimes disparate things with very few resources. And so just getting stuff done and figuring it out. And when you see something that needs to be done, not waiting around for somebody else to do it, but taking the initiative and making it happen, because there's a chance that there isn't another person that's going to do it for you.
So true. Yeah, I think that's a kind of a reoccurring theme in our chats is that, we nonprofit space, we wear so many different hats.
Yep.
And that can lead to burnout so quickly. But at the same time, it also is teaching you new things and new skills. And so I think there's a fine line right between it being too much, right?
Mhm.
And us being like, oh, we're a nonprofit. We have to be nimble. We have
Yep.
to be thrifty. We have to, oh, we can't afford all these things. So I'm going to do 10% of my job's this, and 10% of my job is this, and 10% is this. How do you kind of balance the work-life balance piece of it? Because it's so easy for us to get burnt out in these really heavy jobs, especially when you're as a case manager, right? That second-degree trauma is so heavy, and especially in a very confidential type of organization that you were in. You can't necessarily go home and tell a loved one what you heard during the day because it's so confidential. How do you handle that without leading to burnout?
I can't say I always handled it well. I am not
agreed, right? We can all say that we struggle with it.
We all have to find what works for us. I trend towards anxious to begin with, and so it's really hard to turn my brain off at night. And so, sometimes I coped with wine. A lot of times it was just, scheduling, sometimes even having to force myself to be social outside of work because, these types of jobs are also very emotionally draining.
Yeah.
I am naturally an introvert. And so, it's easy for me to just go home, talk to nobody, turn out the lights, and just vegetate. That is what I prefer to do. But I've learned to engage in social activities outside of work, because that is what balances us. It's our friends. It's thinking of things that are not at all related to work. I also work out a lot. I love to dance. I like to kickbox. There's just the world is just full of wonders. There's like so many things that we could be thinking about when we, in order to unwind or not think about sad stories and just things that are stressful. Like we can do it. There are the things. It's just finding the tools to access all the things that can balance us and make us whole.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the younger version of you was very much an introvert.
Yes.
How have you grown? Is the older version of you still as much of an introvert? Like, because I've known you, and I wouldn't necessarily have ever. I could see that now as an introvert. But what would you say is on the little spectrum of introvert to extrovert? Have you moved from that, or have you just learned so many good skills that it's still there, but you just know how to cope with that or handle that in a way that gets you into situations or onto a show like this without
completely having a meltdown?
Yeah.
You don't know that I am internally having no, I'm okay. I think I am now an extroverted introvert. So I still draw energy from, having, I do need to recharge. There are moments where I have to be by myself and really cut the lights out. Nobody can be in the room with me except for maybe my cats.
Even the husband's kicked out.
I have to be by myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. But I am increasingly finding that I do draw energy from other people, and that is somewhat new. So I think, again, I've been in jobs where I'm leading teams. I'm engaging with every kind of stakeholder you can imagine, whether it's a funder, it's a donor, it's a board member, a constituent, a client, the other members of the leadership team. I just have had to adapt to communicating to whoever is in front of me. And now I am at a place where I can sometimes draw energy from interacting with others. It's been fun. It's been fun to like change that, what seemed like a core part of my identity as an introvert. It's been great to observe that progress within myself.
That's really interesting to me because I'm such an extrovert. And so I feed off the energy of others. And so being alone to me is like a scary thing, right? I'm like, I don't want to be alone. What am I going to do with my time? And you're like, just bring me my cats. I just want to sit in a room.
I need perfect silence. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think that's what makes life so interesting is we're all so different, but
Well, and so knowing that about yourself, how do you apply those types of values and qualities and traits when you're starting to build like programs to help get people into these jobs that you do on a daily basis, right? So do you bring that type of experience, knowing who you are, right, as this version of, you, and then knowing that there are others like me who are very extroverted who need to be drawn the energy of others? Do you take that into consideration when you're designing programs for people? Just or at least understanding how people are so different, and I guess bringing what they bring to the table when you're meeting with people and trying to think about, getting them some into like your hospitality program, for example. Like, do you do that?
I don't think I consciously think about that, but so when I think about the people who might be a good fit for a program, they tend to be folks who have had a lot of barriers to employment and really want to work, but just haven't been given an opportunity. And so I think about, I know that I have never experienced some of the things that our participants have, but we all want the same things. We all want to have the dignity of work. We want to be appreciated while we're at work, and be compensated fairly for what we do. And I think about what I have in common with most people, and we have, and I think that's a common refrain, is that we have more in common than we don't. And when I'm outreaching to potential employers who I think could be a good fit for our program, and we'll talk more about what the specific program is eventually. Correct.
Well,
yeah.
Great segue into it now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was the next question.
Okay,
So tell us about this training program you're doing with hospitality here in San Diego.
So we offer a 3-week paid training program. It consists of 1 week of classroom training at San Diego College of Continuing Education. They have been an amazing partner, and they have helped customize a training program just for us. So during that first week of classroom training, they receive their food handler certification, OSHA safety training. There's a lot of emphasis on customer service and soft skills, because we are sending people into hospitality settings. And so it's, one of the most important qualities in our candidates is people skills, good communication. And so there is a lot of emphasis on soft skills. And then we also help them with their resume and interviewing skills. So after that first week of training, we then pair them with one of our hotel partners. So we partner with luxury unionized hotels in San Diego. We will only partner with unionized hotels who pay a wage that's more than what we pay for our participants to attend training. And we pay $21 an hour for those 3 weeks. They're our employee. And we will not really budge on our partnerships. We want them to make at least $21 an hour if they are offered a position at the end of their on-the-job training or more. And the reason why we only partner with unionized hotels is because not only do we want our participants to have a living wage, we also want them to have access to benefits, protections that a union contract can afford, and a pension. These are things that, are increasingly becoming rare, like a pension. I've never, that's just rare unless you work in the government. And so we really we want to champion people, again, who have a lot of barriers to employment. We want to provide them with a path to not just a good job, but a good career in the hospitality industry and with the protections of a union contract.
That's great. Now, if someone's interested in this hospitality program, what kind of recruitment are you doing right now, and how could someone learn about more on how to get into your program?
Sure. So we have partnered with a lot of community organizations. We're continuing to expand our reach to as many community partners as possible. Some of the organizations we currently partner with are San Diego Workforce Partnership, Jewish Family Services, International Rescue Committee. We are going to do a more targeted outreach to veterans. And so with the strength of these partnerships, we want to just constantly have a pipeline of referrals from people who are recommending them, from our community partners, and ensure that we are targeting the people who really need this kind of opportunity the most. But we also have our information on our website. We are a small organization. This is a relatively new program. So an opportunity like this is amazing because we are trying to figure out how to better market ourselves and have a wider reach. And so, this opportunity just fell into my lap yesterday. And so I think this is like things like this is part of it. Like we can do a better job of getting our name out there. And, hopefully this is a way to do that.
What is the goal for how many people go through your training program?
So we are funded through a state grant and as well as a grant through Jobs for the Future. We are in the process of applying for a number of different grants to sustain, what we have going. We want to, eventually we want to expand into other types of industries, and replicate our training model into other industries like the healthcare industry, for example.
Well, that's really exciting. So, there's probably a lot of people listening right now who are trying to think of like, oh, what are different opportunities or ways I can start working in the nonprofit space? And you're obviously offering a 3-week training program, paid, for folks to go through, and then hopefully land a job at one of these amazing unionized hotels here in San Diego. Which hotels are you working with?
So we have partnered with 10 different unionized hotels. So Hyatt, let me see, Hyatt Bayfront, nope, scratch that. Hilton Bayfront, Hyatt Mission Bay, Intercontinental, Lowe's, Humphreys. We just recently partnered with Kona Kai. We have worked with Coronado or Hotel del Coronado. They've been under construction for quite some time, we haven't partnered with them in a while, but those are some of our partners, to name a few.
So if you're looking for a job at like Hotel Del or Hilton Bayfront, these are great places that give you opportunity to try something. I mean, you work with a lot of like refugee populations too,
Correct.
Right? So folks who are here, who are looking for work. I also know that just talking with you over, especially the last couple of months, right? You have folks who are where English is not their first language.
Correct.
And you're working very closely with folks, especially probably at working with San Diego College of Continuing Education, to say, okay, so ESL, let's get you into a really great ESL program that can get you those skills so then you can be successful in this 3-week program with you and then land a really great job, right?
Yes, that is the goal. We are referring individuals if they're interested in the program, but perhaps their English language skills are maybe entry level or somewhat. What is a good word for that? If English is not their first language, we do refer them to San Diego College of Continuing Education for their ESL classes. We typically recruit for each cohort 2 to 3 months out. And so, for example, if we get somebody who's interested in the program, but maybe they could brush up on their English skills, we will also refer them to other resources before the training starts so that they're as primed as possible to be successful. Not everyone who goes to the program is eventually hired by their host hotel, but that is the goal, and we want to improve our outcomes so that not only are we screening and recruiting the best possible candidates, but that we want to ensure that if they go through our 3-week program, as many of our participants as possible are being offered permanent positions with their training hotel.
So when you say hospitality, give us an idea of what kind of jobs that means for folks.
So we have funding for a 3-week program. So typically we are targeting fairly entry-level positions because you're going to need more time for training if it's something more skilled like a chef position, or if they want to go into HR, we're going to need more than 3 weeks of training to ensure that they're qualified for the role. So we do tend to place people initially in the more entry-level positions. Those are also the positions that the hotels have the most need for, either because there's a lot of turnover or they're, where it's peak, we're about to embark on peak travel season. And so they're bringing in new people into the team. And so those do tend to be the most common positions, simply out of need, but also because of the skill level that we're training for. But for unionized hotels in particular, they tend to promote from within. And so if you get your foot in the door, and we tell participants all the time, this may not be your dream job. Being a dishwasher or a room attendant may not be your dream job. But if you stick with it and if you do a really good job, in 6 months, maybe you could apply for a different role within a different department, or maybe a promotion. Who knows? I mean, it's really up to them at that point as to what they make of that opportunity. But we want to at least be the vehicle for them to even have a path.
That's amazing. Well, and these jobs are in demand.
They are in demand, yes.
And so if there are friends or family of someone you know who is interested in and needs work, what a great program. And a 3-week paid training program. Like that's
we pay $21 an hour. We also will help with transportation costs. So if people rely on public transportation, we can help pay for bus passes. If they do have a car, but they don't have the funds to get to training or to their host hotel, then we can supply them with gas cards. And then finally, if for on-the-job training, they do need to dress in all black and wear non-skid shoes. So if they don't have the ability to pay for that, we can help cover that as well.
That's amazing. Amazing. Well, good work. Now, if people are interested in learning more about your program, can you tell them how they can find you and learn more information?
Of course. They can go to our website, which is pabsd.org. There is a tab at the very top that says Hotel Worker Training Program, and you will find our interest form. Fill that out, and somebody from our organization will be in touch with you shortly.
That's amazing. So you said 3 weeks. Do you have like cohorts running often?
Yes.
So how does that process work?
So we run 4 cohorts a year. Our next cohort, which we are currently recruiting for, will be in January.
Great. So it's a cohort model. So for those who are listening, that's great. You're not necessarily alone, right? You're going to learn with someone else who's probably in a similar situation or comes from a similar lived experience, right? So maybe they're an immigrant as well. And so you can have someone the cohort model is really helpful in a training program where people are maybe not having necessarily, or maybe a little have some trepidation of being like, is this for me, right?
Right.
So that's a helpful process.
Absolutely. So our cohorts consist of about 18 to 20 people. So it's a relatively small classroom setting. The instructors at San Diego College of Continuing Education do a great job of doing small group work. So it's always fun to see at the very start of class, you see a lot of nervous people. It's completely silent and awkward. And then they're forced into these small group settings. And then by the end of classroom training on that Friday, it seems like they've been friends their entire lives. It's really great to see that progression happen. And they encourage each other. We've seen cohort after cohort where they're encouraging one another. They're working really well in these groups. We also have alumni from previous cohorts come to our training classes to speak about their experience after having gone through the program and being successfully offered a position at their training hotel. And that really gives our trainees a different perspective that we as training administrators or facilitators cannot possibly provide. And so they'll talk about like what they did to make themselves stand out to the hotel management so that they were offered that position. And also just having if the trainee themselves had barriers, really providing encouraging words to trainees who may feel like but what if I have something on my record, or what if I have this past that I'm very ashamed of? It gives people permission to to see themselves as a whole person, and that their entire identity is not just this thing they may be concerned about or feel self-conscious of. And so it's an amazing program. I am honestly, it's one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done in my life. So it's I invite anyone to come to our to browse our website. I can also provide my contact information if you want to,
Yeah, we'll put it on our website.
Make it available. I love talking about our program, and so I'm happy to provide any other information if anyone's interested.
What I love what you just said is that it's a very rewarding program for you,
yes,
helping to run this, right? And with 12,000 nonprofits in San Diego and so many nonprofits constantly hiring, it ends up being a pretty small group. Like, you and I are always at events together, always running into each other, and that's the same space for everyone. And I think it's exciting that you just said it's rewarding for you, let alone for the program participants, right? And I think that's why we do this work.
Absolutely.
We wear the many hats.
Yes.
We're on the verge of burnout in so many different ways, but then we sit and pause and we think about it and we talk about it like you are right now, and you're like, wow, that's why I love to wake up and do this work, because it's so rewarding, right? Tell us like what that's like for you. Like,
it's incredible, like, to actually be able to say genuinely that I wake up every morning excited to go to work is something that I feel incredibly privileged to be able to say and feel. And I've had so many rewarding, moments and career or jobs in my life. And so I just think that this is almost a capstone to my career. I don't know what comes after this, but I'd like to stay. I'd like to do something like this, stay in this capacity for the foreseeable future. And then I also, I know that for our younger workforce, Gen Z, they want meaning in their work. They don't want just a job. And so I also, maybe not necessarily this program, but of course this program. But if you are even interested in nonprofit work, I think you will find so much fulfillment and joy, even though the work can be very hard. It can be very draining. It's worth it in the long run.
I love that. We're going to switch to our next segment that we call 3 Wishes. So let's imagine that there's a genie standing before us.
Great.
And this genie is going to allow you to make 3 wishes. What would your first wish be? And it could be personal or it could be about work, but just what would one of your wishes be?
For there to no longer be a disparity. The disparity between who's rich, who's poor, who gets the biggest piece of the pie, who's left with crumbs is just so out of control right now that I would, if I could have that wish, I would want for there to be true equality across every human being in this world. I mean, how amazing would that be? Like, what would life even look like if...
Wouldn't it be amazing?
If everybody had access to the same resources and it was an even playing field for every person, we wouldn't need programs like this. And that would be great. It would be amazing to not have a job because we don't have a need for things like this.
Yes, and it's funny, in our last podcast, that was also brought up because we always say, nonprofits exist because we're Band-Aids in so many ways, right? And our systems are broken, so these philanthropic ways and other resources come together to solve a problem. But wouldn't it be great to put us all out of business because we're all had the same level playing field and access to all the same resources, whatever we needed?
Right.
That'd be really fun. And think of the innovation we would all be doing.
I know.
Because then we could be focused on that.
Yes, we could be. Not that I want to, I don't want to get rid of jobs, but, to your point, we could focus on different kinds of jobs that are
what would
more
be next?
Focused on innovation, making life even better for everybody. And then I'm torn between a couple of things for my third wish, but I think I do have to go with our climate. Somehow fixing our huge climate issue. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to start to begin to talk about it, but that needs to.
Well, and the wish could be big, so it'd be just we wouldn't have climate issues.
Yes,
done. Yeah, all resolved. And yes, I love that. That's really great. So, just before we wrap up, I just want to first say thank you for your work and dedication to the nonprofit space. Thank you for this career you've led to, and that you've allowed yourself to not be pigeonholed into one thing, but really adapting and trying different hats and different roles. I think that that's, again, another theme we're hearing in this world is that not everyone has a prescripted way of getting from point A to point Z. Um, and dare I say, although that's scary, it can be very fun if we lean into it, right? And go and try working somewhere and try a different skill and trying something. So I appreciate that that's been your trajectory, and it's clearly working out well for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And likewise, I appreciate all the amazing work that you're doing, uplifting nonprofits in the community and really trying to get us all to work together instead of just being in competition with one another.
Right. Well, and
we're all, I mean, our end goal is about the same. So why don't we all like figure it out and how to work together?
Well, and it's very funny, a side note, as I'm trying to wrap up, but I'm going to keep this going. Your program with this hospitality program, you were talking about, the kind of the workforce readiness piece, right, of helping people do resume writing and practice interviewing skills. Well, that's something we're doing in our own program too, and our funding sources is the same, right? And so I was just thinking as you're talking was, wow, and there's another program in San Diego doing similar work, and I was like, wait, after this, I'm going to have a meeting with the three of us, and we're all going to say, how can we share the same program or learning outcomes for that and leverage resources in a better, more productive way, right? So I'm already thinking that in this own chat. So I just appreciate it because that's what I love about you is that you're like, wait, okay, there's a problem. How can we solve it? And there's all these other resources along the way that we could leverage. So.
Yes.
So we're working or not even thinking we're working.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and again, thank you for the work you're doing. Also with, the Labor Council side of things and bringing this equity lens to just work in general. And I think you're doing that with the hospitality piece, but it's kind of an arm of what the Labor Council is doing. And I just appreciate your leadership there and, making sure that the worker voice is loud and clear in all the work that you do.
Yeah. And I think there's still a lot of stigma around labor unions. And honestly, like before I started working here, I didn't know very much about them either. And I was aware of some of the, I was aware of some of the stigma. And really all anybody wants is for workers to be taken care of. Union leaders fight for their workers. They fight for better wages, better benefits, pensions so that they can sustain their families for years to come. That's all they want. They don't, there's, of course, in any context, there's some politicking, but by and large, there's like the movement itself is truly, it's a fascinating organism to behold. And I'm very, very proud to be a part of it.
Well, and I would say too that, for a lot of nonprofit leaders who may be listening, it's, when they think of unionizing and it's like, oh, that's scary. Yeah. Oh, nonprofits, it would put nonprofits out of work. Well, there's two very pretty large nonprofits in San Diego that have recently unionized, and they're learning that it's actually very beneficial. And when we started doing this work with Good Feathers Foundation, I thought, okay, how do we unionize? I was like, well, we don't have a big enough staff yet, but we will be very union friendly when we finally can do that. But I said, when talking with Bridget and Marianne and other leaders, union leaders locally, I said, well, I can at least take best practices. And what would that be so that the worker voice and that this equity-minded framework is embedded into the culture of what we do? Right. And so we offer, unlimited PTO. We have healthcare, and I did make sure it was a very healthy, rich benefit plan, and a retirement plan. And I was like, well, those are at least the minimum things we can do. And we're trying to make a very open and transparent type of like workplace culture where we push each other to actually take time off.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I had Liz working with me, and I was like, "No, Liz, you're taking the rest of the day off," because she had worked at this, on another event for us. And I just want to make sure that that becomes the culture, right? Where you're treating people with the dignity and respect. You can do that, and and you can still use good union practices to help formalize and create those work environments, right?
Exactly.
So
And not only is it the right thing to do, but if you have healthy, happy, engaged workers, you're going to have a better work product.
yeah,
Like that's just
yeah, and
basic.
and I mean, you and I can just think of a handful of nonprofits right now that many people working at them would call them highly toxic.
Sure.
And and but if they had these types of things, they could have representation and they could be protected in a way that would allow them to continue working on the mission than fixing these problematic areas within the culture and the environment.
Exactly.
Well, good. Well, we'll make sure that that's another topic we take on for our future show for us. But thank you again for being here. I just appreciate you, and
Likewise.
I've learned so much. Every time we meet, I'm always like, "Oh yeah, I know that about you. Wait, I didn't know that about you." So thank you, Gina, for being here and your leadership in the nonprofit sector. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Good for Others show. As always, I hope that you have learned something today that has inspired you to do good for others.